The River Lea is perhaps most famous for not being the Thames, but London's other river is bursting with stories. I'm about to find out how this watercourse is a lifeblood in its own right. In this journey, I'll walk the final miles of the Lea as it cuts through the north and east of London, concluding at the River Thames. I'll take in the splendour and wildlife of Europe's biggest urban wetlands.
This place has been off the radar for decades.
I'll savour the architectural majesty of Joseph Bazalgette's Cathedral of Sewage. Look at it, it's fantastic. I'll find out how the Lea faces a battle today with plastic waste.
We don't want the plastic ruining the wildlife.
And I'll hear the music of the future in London's only lighthouse. I'm Sean Fletcher, and this is River Walks. It's early in the morning, I'm still rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and I'd be forgiven for thinking that this is the wrong place to begin a river walk. This corner of North London seems to be all about busy roads, housing blocks and superstores, but the clue's in the name, Tottenham Hale. Hale comes from the Old English verb to hoist or to pull, and it refers to the lifting of goods up to the road from the river below. And this is the River Lea. Barely 2 minutes from the hubbub of the station, at Tottenham Lock, the River Lea navigation feels like another world, a gateway to tranquility. It's from here that my walk along London's second biggest river will begin in earnest. The River Lea originates in the Chiltern Hills in Bedfordshire, taking in 3 counties before entering the capital. I plan to follow the last 8 of its 42 miles down to the River Thames. But my first stop is barely a stone's throw from Tottenham Lock, Walthamstow Wetlands. Fed in large part by the River Lea and occupying 211 hectares of northeast London is Europe's biggest urban wetlands. Having received over £10 million from the Heritage Lottery Fund, Thames Water and the London Borough of Waltham Forest, the wetlands were opened to the public in October 2017. Matthew, you've been running this place for about a year. How's it been going?
It's been going pretty well, actually. We've had a lot of people come in here. Far more than we anticipated.
How many?
Probably about 300,000 plus.
Wow. How many were you hoping for?
Well, we were anticipating after about 5 years we'd have about 250,000 visits a year.
So a lot more people coming here than you were expecting, but I always thought there was a disconnect between people in the city and places like this.
It's always a bit of a challenge, but that's part of the fun, really, working in nature conservation in our towns and cities.
A few minutes ago, I was at Tottenham Hale Tube, very built-up area, and I know we've got a big pylon behind us, we've got a train line over there, but it does feel like we are in the middle of nowhere in many respects.
Well, we've kind of opened up a part of London where the access to sort of good quality natural green space is quite minimal. There's a lot of pressure on development, and to be able to hear, finches sing as they bob through the hedgerows or the herons on the top of the trees. This place has been off the radar for decades, and people are beginning to see its delights.
Bisected by the aptly named Ferry Lane, the wetlands sit alongside half a dozen watercourses, all travelling down the Lea Valley at this point. It's a site of special scientific interest. I think I can see, is that a great crested grebe out there?
Yep, you're dead right.
Tell me about the ecology of this place.
Well, we've got 10 reservoirs, a number of islands in those reservoirs, and we've got many kilometres of vegetated banks with trees of different sizes and ages, providing a sort of multitude of habitats, which are particularly important for birds.
Oh, that's a cormorant, is it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, this is my walk along the River Lea, but I feel like I've already lost it. Where are we in terms of the River Lea and how important is it for this area?
And we're in between the Lea Navigation, which is over there, and the River Lea, which is behind us. We have the Coppermill Stream running through here. It's a kind of multitude of rivers that kind of merge further downstream. And the wetlands sit in a very critical, important part of the Lea Valley. The Lea is perhaps beginning to recover its kind of natural quality that had kind of been lost in most of the 20th century.
Yet the wetlands are also fully operational reservoirs for Thames water, providing 500 million litres of drinking water for North East London every day. I met their senior archaeologist, Claire Hallibone. We've got a great vantage point here over the reservoirs. We're on the balcony of this pretty incredible building. What is it?
So this is known as the Marine Engine House, and it was a pumping station built quite late on in the construction of the reservoirs to pump water from the River Lea into the reservoirs.
Well, why did they choose this site?
So in the 1800s, there was very little development, and the site was marshland. The geology is clay, so it's really good for retaining water. In the period where the reservoirs were built, there was a clear need to move the water supply from the River Thames to other rivers and other areas of London.
Built between 1863 and 1904 by the East London Waterworks Company, the reservoirs were a response to a growing population stricken by drought and a series of cholera outbreaks. As the Thames, London's lifeblood, turned poisonous, the Lea became a source of clean water for the capital.
In the early 1900s, the population that they were serving was 1.5 million. The reservoirs today serve 3.5 million customers with high-quality drinking water.
So the River Lea has historically been really key for London.
Yes, absolutely.
Just south of the wetlands, Walthamstow Marshes are a crucial part of the Lea Valley Regional Park, which spans 26 miles and 10,000 acres. It was created by an Act of Parliament in 1967 as a green lung for London. This is one of London's few remaining River Valley grasslands, and it gives an idea of what the Lea landscape would have looked like. And for a short time every year, belted Galloway cattle graze here to help with the conservation of the flora and fauna. Heading south, I followed the course of the River Lea navigation along the western side of Hackney Marshes and into the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. Here, I hopped over to the River Lea proper, where my second stop was Carpenter's Road Lock. Giles, this looks really impressive. Tell me what's happening here.
I'm just opening the gate for the lock here.
And am I right in saying 100 years ago you'd have had strong men lifting the lock or moving it? Now you've just got a button to press.
Hundreds of years ago, we had a tidal lock, and that would have been hand-worked with great wooden gates pushed by burly men. Now, retirees like me, all I've got to do is push a button. I don't even have to push it that hard.
Give us an idea of the scale of the operation of getting this thing back up and running.
It was huge. Built first in the 1930s, the counterweights are from the original lock. It took us a couple of years to restore this lock and £1.8 million.
It's wonderful to see this huge gate being lifted. Once a vital watercourse supporting booming industrial activity, the Bowback rivers hadn't been accessible to boats for decades, until the restoration of Carpenter's Road Lock was completed in 2017.
Boy, Sean, come on down here. Grab yourself a life jacket.
I didn't see you down there. God, it's a long way down.
You're worth the journey.
Can't wait. Well, I'm aboard. Is it safe?
Yeah, it is, it is. Welcome to the Hanwell and the bottom of Carpenter's Road Lock.
I have to say, it's very beautiful. In a sort of lock sort of way.
Well, yes.
Dick Vincent is the National Towpath Ranger for the Canal and River Trust, who, along with Heritage Lottery Fund, London Legacy Development Corporation and Inland Waterways Association, are responsible for the reopening of the lock.
As you're here, Sean, you might as well do one of the most important jobs we have on the canal. Grab yourself a litter picker.
OK. Right, well, there's a long one and a little one. I'll take the little one, I think.
OK, OK. It's as simple as you get one of these and you're fishing. You're looking for any bits of waterborne litter that are on the canal.
Oh, good find. Shall I give you a hand or you just bring it in?
Just going to leave that there for a second.
Shall I get that?
Bullseye, well done, you see.
My first bit of litter.
Hey.
That's horrible, isn't it?
That's minging, down there.
Why is this work important?
Well, there are lots of reasons why it's important, but mostly it's about these little guys. It's about the ducks and the geese and the coots. You know, we've all seen Blue Planet, right? We've all seen the straw being pulled out of that turtle's nose, and it's the same principle here. We don't want the plastic ruining the wildlife, and you know, it's amazing how much wildlife there is right here in the centre of London.
And speaking of which, there's a
Yeah.
bottle there.
Yeah,
Just
well,
need
good
to pick
luck.
that out. Yeah. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Yeah. How bad was it though?
It was awful. I can remember when I first came here, it was just broken down warehouses. You know, we pulled out something in the region of 20,000 tyres alone.
20,000 tyres were in this river.
Yeah, just
this
thrown
area?
in. Yeah, absolutely. We had 21 safes with their backs blown off.
Gangsters had stolen safes, taken the
Yeah.
loot, and then dumped
Yeah.
the safe in the back.
Yeah, and that's how bad this area was.
Now, Dick, tell me, what does the Lea mean to you?
It's become a home, actually. You know, I've bought a boat, I live on the Lea. It's just an amazing part of London because it connects some of the amazing rural spaces that we have straight into the centre of London, and you see it change as you come along, and eventually sort of ending up here, which is, well, it's overflowing with cappuccino and flowing beers. You know, this is the centre of hipster, right?
Circling past London Stadium, we headed into Old Ford Locks, where the River Lea and the Lea Navigation reunite.
So that's the Lea up there, and as you head up that way, you can take the old Lea and go around that way into the wetlands, which is where you come from, or you can head down this way, and you know, you're going into the Olympic Park and eventually down into Docklands.
So depending on how the mood takes me, I can have a different experience every time I walk down the Lea.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got a lifetime of walking just ahead of you that way, let alone what goes on down there.
But down there I went, bidding farewell to Dick and heading the relatively short distance to my next destination, 3 Mills Island, and specifically the House Mill. Having seen how the Lea sustains wildlife, supplies drinking water, and supports transportation, my next port of call would show me how it once powered industry. The Grade 1 listed House Mill is the largest remaining tidal mill in the world, and slowly but surely it's being brought back to life. I arrived as some particularly strenuous research into its working past was underway.
You look busy.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on here?
Well,
Should probably let you get your breath back, shouldn't I?
Well, we've installed this stone crane to lift this millstone.
Oh,
up
this is a millstone, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this weighs in excess of 3/4 of a tonne. And you have the grain pouring into the eye of the stone. So this is turning approximately 120 RPM.
What are you trying to do?
Well, what we're planning to do, we've got to go a little further yet, so we're able to turn it over so we can inspect what we call the dressing of the millstone, which is
the underside?
On the underside, yes.
Which is where the grain would go.
There would have been a lot of grain going through these millstones, so I think these would have constantly be lifted, redressed, put back together, constant sort of cycle.
Don't wait for me.
Okay. You can have a go if you like.
No, I'm quite happy. You look like experts.
Should be it now.
The moment of truth. God, I can see it's heavy.
Oh, it certainly is.
So what is it we're seeing here, Paul?
As we can see, these lines, the red lines here, these are setting out lines. These have all been done by hand. Is the ruddle that we use today. This is telling me this stone has never been used since the day it was dressed.
So how long ago was that?
Around about 1940, where the area was hit by a massive bomb.
It's tragic that they put all that work into it and it never got used.
The House Mill sits on 3 Mills Island, a home to mills since 1086, as recorded in the Domesday Book. To understand how the River Lea's tide-powered production here, I enlisted the services of someone who knows the place well.
Dan Cruikshank, you're the man to tell me how a tidal mill works.
Well, I hope so. Thank you very much. OK, here we are. It works by utilising the power of nature. The tide is going out, of course that creates power because it's movement. There is a River Lea behind us. And so the tide going out below our feet engages with this great wheel, which is also down below us. And as the tide goes out, the wheel turns. As the wheel turns using water power, various cogs engage, And so I am, as you can now see, taking the persona of the River Lea, the great Lea god, turning, using natural power to work the operation to turn, ultimately, the grindstones here. Good. Now, you're the miller. You pull the string here, just gently pull it, and it engages through friction. The hoist is engaging, and the hoist is coming up. So there's two separate things taking place from the same source of power, the wheel, and it comes up through a hole in the floor, which is over there. And here it comes. It's a lovely design, too. It lifts the floorboard, so to speak. There we are, and that's over there. So here's one's going from here into here. A neat, elegant solution. This model is terrific, isn't it? But it is the only model, and it's modern. There are here some wonderful, authentic things to show you in the next room.
Ah, okay. Wow, Dan, all these bits of metal, parts of machinery.
Ah, metal part, indeed. Pick one up. Yes.
Oh, well, it's really light. It's a bit of wood.
It's wood. It's wood. What you've got here is an amazing part of the Industrial Revolution. These are spare parts. These guys were thinking machine.
Doesn't it wear down? Because it's wood.
No, these are simply models from which one replaces the component of iron when that component breaks. They're called patterns, and there it is. So you make it, and when you have to replace the cast iron one, let's say cracked here, you plunge it into the sand, pour in your molten iron, your cast iron, take it out, and this goes back in store. This would have been used, once every 20 years or something. That's not bad, isn't it? So this dates from 1803 or 802. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I mean, when you look around this place, you can just see it's steeped in history, isn't it? I mean, from the beams to the walls to the floor.
It's a sensational structure that tells a tremendous story about industry in London in the 18th and 19th century, on a site where industry has taken place since Roman times.
What would have been produced here?
Well, gunpowder was made in the time of the Armada, 1588. But this building was really part of the admirable alcohol industry of London, gin distillery.
You say that with a smile on your face.
Well, of course, I'm looking forward to one of the many aspects of the 18th century one deeply admired.
When I hear and see you talk about this place, I can just see the passion. Your eyes light up.
I first came here in the early 1970s, absolutely derelict, abandoned. There was bad bomb damage in 1940. I first saw it when just tottering on the brink of oblivion, and now it's been repaired beautifully, really. But still the atmosphere survives, doesn't it? It was written off as a lost building, and it's still here to delight us and inspire us.
Now, just over there are 7 Victorian gas holders. Don't you get the impression that they sort of loom over the River Lea, like so much industrial history does? The Bromley by Bow gas holders have, in fact, been added to the Victorian Society's 10 most endangered buildings list. They sit in a corner of our route where icons of industrial history are clustered. And my next stopping point is a mere stone's throw away.
I've just stepped off the River Lea to walk alongside Channelsea Creek, which links the Lea down there to the Abbey Mills sewage pumping station further upstream. Now, a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near here, but this newly created path has made it accessible to the public.
And at the end of the path, I came to a building affectionately referred to as the Cathedral of Sewage. Built in 1868, Abbey Mills is said to have been commissioned by the Board of Works with a brief to make a pumping station so ornate it could be shown off to ratepayers. It was intended to be a visible product of the vast sums of money spent on a sewer system hidden deep underground. I met Jerry Sullivan, the site manager.
Jerry,
Hi,
good
Sean.
to meet you.
Good to meet you. First things first, Sean, this is operational building, so if I can get you to put some
problem.
PPE on.
Yeah, got the uniform on. Hey, I can't believe how spectacular this place is. I mean, this is a sewage pumping station. Look at it, it's fantastic. Do you ever pinch yourself when you walk in here and this is your office?
It's a fantastic place to work, it really is beautiful. Sir Joseph Bazalgette has given a lot of credit for this, but we seem to overlook Charles Driver, who was the architect for this pumping station. He was pretty much given a free rein to do exactly what he pleased, and he brought 6 architectural styles into this pumping station, ranging from Russian Orthodox in the lantern at the top. On the roof, you've got Flemish. Coming down, you've got Italian Venetian. On the chimneys, we had Byzantine with minarets on top. We've also got Celtic doors. And as you walk around, you'll see beautiful architecture inside here, which is the French Gothic.
How significant is this as a feat of engineering?
I mean, it's a massive feat of engineering. Obviously, it basically stopped cholera. So in 1 year alone, more than 10,000 people would have died of cholera. Sir Joseph Bazalgette was employed by Disraeli because of the year of the Great Stink, and he built 82 miles of intercepting sewers. Intercepting sewers stopped the main rivers going into the River Thames to clean up the River Thames.
In 1858, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, London was a Stygian pool reeking with ineffable and unbearable horror. This was the Great Stink. Bogus theories of miasma that cholera could be caught by inhaling the stench caused Parliament to be suspended. It was a tipping point that led to the sewer network as we now know it. But while that epidemic is long behind us, another one is emerging today.
So, Henry, what are you going to show me here?
So one of the modern problems we face at a site like this is blockages from fats, oil, grease, and all that unflushable material that shouldn't be going down the toilet. So what I've got is a little test for you.
Okay.
It's very simple. So I've got a wet wipe. You've got some bog standard toilet paper.
Shove it in, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then lids on. And all we're going to do here, this is just to simulate what happens when you flush the toilet.
Yeah.
And it helps to highlight the problem that these wet wipes don't really break down. So with me, 10-second shake.
Yeah.
There we go. If we have a look,
Okay.
you can see the toilet paper's broken down to a mush.
Whereas I can actually see the wipe there.
Nothing happened with
completely
that
intact. So this is how fatbergs are created?
Absolutely, yes. They happen when we've got unflushable material like wet wipes. About 85% of them are to do with wet wipes.
Really?
When that gets into one of our larger sewers and it mixes with fats, oils and grease, you get these disgusting congealed masses we call fatbergs. And they set hard like concrete. That's the weird thing about them. Once they're in place, there's very little we can do apart from send men and women down there to get them out by hand. At Thames Water, we clear around 75,000 blockages every year at a cost of about £18 million. It's a big problem for us.
That's a massive problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think people realise a lot of these wet wipes in particular, they're woven together with microfiber plastics. And those things, when they cause these blockages, they can find their way out into the environment, out into our rivers and out into the oceans.
You seem really passionate about your job. Do you enjoy it?
I love it. I love what I do, yeah. I'm such a water geek. I bore my friends to death with it all.
No, you're not boring me. I mean, you do work that's important to keeping London clean.
Really, the base stuff hasn't changed much since the Victorians started it, and it's amazing, really. It's a great heritage we've got. And so I really love working. I'm really proud to work in these sort of sites as well.
Leaving Abbey Mills, I returned to the Lea and, walking south, saw how human influence on the river's course becomes increasingly visible.
From here, you get a real sense of the River Lea's tangles as you near its end. The River Lea feeds the Thames both via the Limehouse Cut, that's down there, and Bow Creek, which is just below me, as it heads towards Leamouth.
As the bends and meanders of the Lea's course become increasingly acute, my last stretch takes me by Cody Dock and Canning Town. Navigating this, I reach my final point, Trinity Buoy Wharf.
And this is it, the end of my walk, where the River Lea meets the River Thames. But there's just one more thing for me to see.
The lighthouse at Trinity Buoy Wharf is the last remaining in London, and its roof space once housed the workshop for pioneering scientist Michael Faraday. Today, it's home to a musical installation designed to last, potentially, forever.
Jem, I've walked into a lighthouse. I didn't expect to see this.
Well, this is where Long Player lives, and it's been playing here since midday on December the 31st, 1999. It's composed to repeat once every 1,000 years.
How does it work?
There's a very short piece of source music made from singing bowls, 20 minutes long, and then there's a score, an algorithm that operates upon that and creates the 1,000-year duration. No combinations repeated until the 1,000 years is complete, at which point they're all back where they started originally.
So 2,999.
Indeed.
What inspired you to create Long Player?
It's very much an experiment, really, a personal experiment. Then it becomes about how you pass responsibility from generation to generation, how you start to plan for much longer scales of time than we're used to thinking about.
As you know, I've been walking down the River Lea, and the river's been here forever. People, generations, industry and other activities, they come and go, but the river stays there.
It's a very powerful place to have something like Long Player, I think. And just in the time that I've been here, the last nearly 20 years, up and down the river, both sides, you know, everything's just shot up. And standing there listening to Long Player with that sort of knowledge, it's almost like you can see it as time lapse and imagine the whole thing being reduced to dust again, and who knows how many regenerations and cycles will go on.
Above the former workshop at the experimental lighthouse is the Lantern Room. And here I met Jem's daughter, Ella, as we listened to the sound of a singing bowl in isolation.
I can hear that hum, and as you put your ear closer, you can...
So you're hearing the low overtones, but if I stroke it with this, you'll hear some of the higher ones come out.
But Ella, it's a real complex and mesmerising sound, isn't it?
It is, and it's also fascinating to move through that space downstairs of Faraday's lighthouse and then come up here and actually hear that shift in how it reverberates in the space. There's lots of people who come up here say to us about the kind of meditative feeling they get of calm and peace up here.
Jem, you've been telling me about Long Play. Ella, what's your connection to the project?
I'm a custodian of this piece of work to keep Long Player playing. So we've invited 3 brilliant musicians who come from very different styles of making music, thinking about how they pass that music on for the future. Laura Cannell's piece, for example, she plays overbow violin in composition with other recorded versions of the score she'd made. So again, like Long Player, she was looping these versions on top of each other. This is the space where chains were made, where lights were tested, where lighthouse keepers were trained. And so now that it's a kind of hub of cultural activity, it kind of presents a really interesting dynamic in relation with its past.
I started my walk wondering whether the Lea is simply London's other river. And you know what? It is. But it's that otherness that makes it special, because you can make new discoveries right along its course, from its nature to its industry, from the past to the present, and even the future. For me, that's the magic of the River Lea.
When I was a child, I grew up by the River Lea. And there was something in the water, now that something's in me. But it's in my room.